I'm fortunate to have at a couple tables over some of the people who work tirelessly on the CNN show that we produce. And so I'm going to ask them to look into this whole business about the number of countries. I suspect that that at CNN they count some countries that don't actually exist as a way of boosting our ratings. You know, it's either that or compete head-to-head with Fox, and this is an easier strategy, just make up a few countries. You know, in Oceania, we win in prime time. Look, I have to confess, I go through some parts of my life feeling like an imposter, and this is one of them. Because I really have done absolutely nothing to deserve this award. I'm not giving it back, don't worry, it's very handsome. But it's an honor, and I feel doubly grateful because I really don't think I have done anything distinctive, and I haven't done anything nearly of the depth and range that so many of the people in this room have done. I take it, in a sense, in the spirit that President Obama took the Nobel Prize. I will try and do something in the next few years to make up for this. I thought what I'd just spend a little bit of time talking about is what I notice when I travel around the world, when I think about things, and how it relates to this extraordinary cause that you are all committed to and fighting for in some way. You know, I came here in 1982, as Ayaz mentioned. I don't have as dramatic and colorful a story as as events resulting from the fire of 1906 in San Francisco. I came on a scholarship and stayed, like so many Indians. And I don't have any great illegality or fraud, besides with just so many government attorneys sitting here, I wouldn't admit to them if I were. I know this doesn't quite compete, but I did rent a car from Hertz illegally when I didn't have a U.S. driving license. I don't know if that counts, but actually it is remarkable to think back just 25 years ago at how extraordinarily free and easy America was as a place for a young immigrant. I do remember that, and actually I did, I was struck by the fact that you could rent a car with virtually no documentation, no paperwork, no credit cards, because the guy at the other end of the counter was just trying to make money, and he was happy to do it if he could be assured that that was going to happen. And coming from India, where everybody you ever dealt with across a counter was trying in some way to not help you, to not make something happen, this was a revelation. It's the idea that you could actually, go to somebody and he or she would actively be trying to assist you get to some kind of win-win was a totally bizarre idea. The guy on the other side of the counter in India saw it as his job to thwart your life ambitions, your dreams, whatever it is you were trying to do. And here, to be in a society where really the idea was to go and do whatever the hell you want was a complete revelation, and I still treasure it. I've written a great deal over the last few years about this new world we're moving into, a world in which China is rising and India is rising, Brazil, Indonesia, all these countries, and you see it everywhere you go. You turn any direction these days, and you'll see the vivid sense in which these countries are coming up, and the challenge it places on America. This is a very slow recovery from a very deep recession, and part of it has to do with this broader sense that we are in a new world, a world in which anything can be made anywhere, where people are competing not just against the town next door, or the city next door, or the state next door, but the country 8,000 miles away. And that produces a very, very difficult challenge that you see Americans trying to grapple with. And I've thought a lot about, well, what is it that makes America still distinctive? What makes it distinctive at the kind of high abstract level? But what do I feel in my bones when I go around the world and I see these incredibly hardworking people in China and India working to try to move up from $1,000 per capita GDP. And I think to myself, well, what does America still have? What is the secret sauce? And the thing I keep coming back to is the extraordinary dynamism, diversity that come from doing something really unique in the world, which is we are creating the first universal nation. There really does not exist a country like this where people from all over the world come and are entirely included in the process and are able to participate and rise to the best of their talents and capacities. It wasn't always true of our history, and it's certainly a work in progress, but it is extraordinary when you compare it to the rest of the world. You look at our companies, the level of diversity, the level of inclusion, gender, ethnic, national origin, race, religion, it's really extraordinary. I was doing a panel discussion on a CNN show the other day. It was Ali Velshi was hosting it, Ariana Huffington was on it, Mort Zuckerman was on it, and there was one other person, and suddenly one of us looked up and realized everybody at that table was an immigrant. Right? And here we were opining about the American economy. I remember the first time I had that feeling was I was in graduate school at Harvard getting my PhD, and wrote something somewhere, and got a call from the White House saying that the then National Security Advisor, Tony Lake, wanted me to come down and brief the National Security Council on some issue. And I was sitting there, and it was the National Security Advisor, his deputy, a couple of other key White House aides, ironically George Stephanopoulos, who I later went on to work with. And it was 3 or 4 experts, and I kept wondering, when are they going to ask me, do you even have a green card? The answer to which was no. Because for those of you who've gone through this endless process, I was on one of the interminable student visas that you have to be on when you're in grad school. And that feeling of realizing nobody really cared. They were just asking, well, what do you, how can you help America? How can you make us understand what we're doing? And I remember at some point when I was writing, and it was around that time, I stopped using the United States and started using we. And this was maybe a decade before I became a citizen of this country. But that is the genius of America, that it, in a sense, if you think of yourself as an American, well, you become an American. The paperwork takes a little bit longer. God knows I know that. But in a very profound sense, you become an American if you want to be an American. And that is one of the distinctive features of this country. If you go around the world, you find countries still have so much trouble with this issue of immigration. It is so much more difficult than you think. I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of years ago in Japan, a young Japanese bureaucrat, very articulate, very energetic, and committed to helping Japan move forward. And he was explaining to me how it was really essential that Japan take more immigrants, that they understood that that was the only way to get a more dynamic workforce, to get young blood into the system. They look at the United States as a model, and I said, so do you think you'll take some more Koreans in? And he said, oh no, we have a bad political history with Korea. I don't think that's going to work so well. So I said, well, do you think you'll take Filipinos in? He said, well, the Filipinos don't work so hard, so it's a little difficult for us. So I said, well, what about Indians? He said, oh, we'd love to take Indians, but they don't want to come here. They all want to go to America. And I realized that really this very well-meaning young liberal Japanese reformer basically wanted to take immigrants from anywhere as long as they didn't come from any particular country in the world. And that is really the way that many Europeans see immigration. I've had so many conversations with Europeans, and they'll say, you don't understand. All immigrants come from poor rural backgrounds. As if we get the yuppies from Mexico City to come here. I mean, you would think people, you would understand that by definition, the people who are coming and risking, life and pain of death and all that are going to tend to be a little bit poorer and tend to perhaps not come from the cities. But you have the sense that in Europe that if somehow they could get Swedes as immigrants, they would really be more than comfortable with immigration. It's just the bad quality of immigrants that they get that is the problem. And what is extraordinary about the United States is that we take anybody from anywhere and we find a way to make them part of America. And we make them part of America in a way that redefines America in turn. And this has been the genius of America from the start. The immigrants were always seen as dirty and strange, and they worshiped weird gods, and even Catholics were thought of in that way. And the fact that you can have gotten from there to the point where you have a majority of Catholics on the Supreme Court is one of the great testaments to America's inclusiveness, and the fact that it's utterly uncontroversial and a non-issue. I remember at some point a friend of mine who was Jewish pointed out to me about five or 7 years ago that the presidents of Harvard, Yale, and Princeton were all Jewish. This was only a generation after there had been quotas in all of these places, upward quotas to restrict the number of Jews who would be in those universities. And these things happen so seamlessly in America at this point that it seems unremarkable, but it isn't. It happens because of a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of the kind of work that you are putting in. Martin Luther King has one of these great lines of his that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But it doesn't really bend toward justice magically like a rainbow. It bends because you make it bend, because all the things you are doing make that arc bend in a way that includes people, that provides rights, that expands these freedoms. Ayaz talked about the fact that we have this extraordinary phrase in the Declaration of Independence. But one of the great challenges, adventures, and struggles of the United States has been to apply that phrase to more and more people in more and more circumstances so that everyone feels like this is their country, that it is their constitution, and it is their Declaration of Independence. And it really is organizations like this that are doing that kind of work. And I really sincerely mean that I do feel like an imposter taking an award when there is so much important work being done quietly and selflessly by people like you. But for what it's worth, and take it as you will, I'm deeply honored, deeply grateful, and all I can say is please keep up the good work so that when we come back 10 years from now, we can look at a whole new slew of rights and slew of Americans who feel that they too share in the American dream. Thank you. Thank you.